Hey, thank you for listening to the Vegan Ambition podcast. I'm here to let you know that you can visit us on our website at theveganambition.com or on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We post new content every single day. And now, time for the podcast. Hey, I'm Ruji, and today we're joined with Shaka, and I'm Ruji. Welcome to the Vegan Ambition podcast number 17. Today's main question is, what is your view of hunting? But before we start, I'd like to thank today's sponsors. I'd like to thank Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, Garlic, and, of course, Brown Lentils. This podcast is a tool to help vegans, vegetarians, and anyone else who's interested in the vegan or in a plant-based lifestyle. The Vegan Ambition is a no-pressure zone and a no-hostility zone. We don't pressure our guests here, but are simply here to discuss different viewpoints. I hope you'll join us on this journey, and education is our biggest goal here. And this is Shaka. Shaka is an actor, a host, a model, a lawyer, and of course, a vegan. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hey, what's up? It's so glad to join you. This is awesome what you're doing with this podcast. I'm just an actor, fitness model, host, a lot of different things. You know, I live in LA, so you kind of add some hyphenates to your title as you're out here as an actor. You do many different things. But yeah, that's what I do. Right now, I host a weekly fitness show, a fitness podcast. It focuses a little bit on the vegan lifestyle, but also health and wellness to underserved communities. I want to make sure that I was able to bring these ideas that often seem sort of esoteric or privileged ideas to everyone. So I think a lot of people separate veganism and they think it's something they can't afford, something they can't do. So I want people to know that things like veganism and other things that are healthy for you are affordable and accessible, and just kind of bringing that knowledge to everybody.
Fair, really cool. So I want to know about your how you became vegan. What was your story? Where did it start? Why did it start? All about that.
Living sort of like the fitness lifestyle. I moved to LA as an actor, and I started actually competing in fitness competitions. A friend kind of just turned me onto them, and I decided to start competing. And so that kind of got me on that track to going vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that I would be depressed after every competition. I'd get myself in amazing shape, and then slowly I'd lose that shape, and there was depression. And I was still in good shape, but I was just like, hey, I think I can maintain that shape year round. So I experimented with different diets, couldn't quite find the right one. And finally, I found this woman called Annette Larkins, and I just saw that she was in her 70s. She looked like she was about 40 years old. She was vegan, and she was healthy, and she looked great, and she was happy, and she was showing how easy it was to be vegan. And that made me make the shift, and I found that that was a diet that worked best for me.
Oh, cool. And so did you go vegan kind of like overnight, or did you end up taking your time with it? Kind of what did you do in that sense?
So I made the decision. I mean, I stumbled on this video by Annette Larkins, and when I saw the video, I was like, I'm going vegan now. So that was my decision. But I knew that I had to do it in stages. So the first year, I ate red meat. The second year, I went pescatarian, and the third year, I went vegan. But that day, I was like, today, it is today.
I gotcha. That's great. And so now, how long have you been vegan?
Almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in January.
Amazing. And have you found it to be challenging in Hollywood?
Oh, I mean, so lucky and so fortunate to live in Los Angeles, where there's like a vegan shop on every corner, and every place that's not vegan has vegan accommodations. So, and that's something I also try to talk to people about is what can you do if you don't have a city that is so warm and welcoming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. I'm living in, in Toronto, like there's a lot of options, but I'm living outside of Toronto right now, and there's just not nearly as many options. I think I know like one restaurant nearby that has a vegan option.
Yeah, that can be challenging, super challenging.
Yeah, for sure. So other than kind of the health motivation, was there any motivation that came from, what you learned about animals and cruelty in that sense, or the environment, or kind of?
I mean, honestly, when I made the decision to go vegan, that wasn't a concern. I want to say maybe a year before that, I'd seen a documentary that just really, it showed the animal. I was like, I'm not eating animal products, and that lasted about 3 or 4 days. Because you
Mm.
kind of reason yourself out of it. You say, well, what can I really do? And is me not eating meat going to actually really help these animals? And you still see people eating meat, and so I reasoned myself out of it at that time. But as I became vegan, that those conscious decisions started to play a role in the way I thought about animals and animal welfare and what we do. So I would say now I've moved a lot more to being more of an ethical vegan than just a vegan for the health and fitness aspect of it.
Okay, great. And what are you doing kind of like so in terms of your podcast, you are on a podcast. So what is are you spreading veganism there, or what is kind of the goal there?
Well, of course, when it comes to health, because it's a fitness podcast, so when it comes to health and fitness, I don't want to say anything is right or wrong, because I think you can be healthy and fit and using different diets that do employ some level of meat or some level of fish or whatever it is. But I do focus on the vegan lifestyle, so I have a lot of different vegan different vegan influencers come in. So I've had, I don't know, vegan fat kid Tim Moore is a great influencer, just looks at all these different foods and really shows people that vegan food can be fun. Nimai Delgado is a vegan bodybuilder, so I had him in. So I wanted to show people that I want to give them the full range, but I want them to know that veganism is an option, and it's a solid option, and probably the best option if you really look at it.
That's amazing. So kind of like what is your like daily diet kind of like? Is I know for a lot of bodybuilders who aren't vegan, they eat like chicken and rice all day long.
Yeah.
Uh, and so what is your kind of, what do you eat all day long, or what do you do, change it up every day? What is that
Yeah,
kind of like?
yeah. I mean, for me, it varies. What I found with actually going vegan is I actually had more latitude. I didn't have to be as strict, because when you're eating vegan and you're trying to do it, I guess, in a more healthy way, you can be a bad vegan. So I was trying to do it in a healthy way. I'm looking at raw foods, fruit, vegetables, things that are kind of single ingredient foods. When you do it in that way, you have a wide latitude. I wasn't affected. My body didn't come out of shape as it did when I kind of veered off path when I wasn't vegan. So for me, it's a lot of tofu, a lot of tempeh, a lot of beans, a lot of chipotle. I love chipotle. Really easy to go vegan. There are a lot of avocado, healthy fats to make sure I'm feeling full as well. So it varies. A lot of people say, where do you get your protein? But green leafy vegetables have protein. Again, the beans have protein. The tofu and the tempeh have protein. So there's a wide array of foods to get your protein from.
So I had a guest on my second episode. He's a friend of mine, and he's not a bodybuilder. He's not he's not like anything, but he's really into being fit and working out, and he's not vegan. And he like I said, he eats a lot of like chicken and a lot of rice. Do you have any suggestions for people who are like that, who are not vegan, but maybe interested in some aspects of veganism, and they don't know where, like really they don't know where to start even?
Well, I would say that you wanted to start with protein, right? And so someone who's into building their body, I supplements to vegan supplements. So I had a lot of friends who were heavy meat eaters, but they were also heavy whey protein users. And so what they did was they switched a lot of their whey protein to vegan protein, and they found better results doing that. So that kind of got them more into the idea of maybe having a vegan diet might also be beneficial. So I'd say switch your supplements. If you're really into fitness, you're probably taking protein. Go to vegan protein first, and then just go to the store and look at the different products that they have without committing to necessarily going vegan, but maybe trying something one time a week.
Oh, I see. Sorry, do you mind just turning off your camera? I think the audio is getting a little bit um not great now because of
Okay,
the connection.
let me see if I can do that.
I think it's
I
just the little camera looking button on the screen.
know that right. Hello?
Yep.
Okay, I think it's off, right?
Yep. I think it's off now, so we're good. Sorry, I,
Okay,
I,
cool.
I wasn't sure how the bandwidth would work, but it seems to be working a bit better now.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
so yeah, so your recommendations are essentially, uh, just go to the store and see kind of what you can find that is vegan like tofu and tempeh and
Well,
so forth.
I always tell people start with like a vegan Monday,
Hmm.
take one day that you're going to make vegan, or maybe one meal, maybe vegan dinners or vegan lunch, and you make that one meal vegan. And then for people that are like bodybuilders or interested in that, I know they're taking protein. So I say switch your supplements to vegan proteins. And when you see the
Right.
results in that, that'll convince you about going full vegan.
So what kind of results are those? Like, can you? Because I really don't know anything about bodybuilding. I'm not.
So
I'm sorry, but I'm just not. I just don't work out that much. So what kind of results like would someone see in that case?
Well, first of all, a lot of us don't realize like most people are allergic to whey. Most people in
Right.
general are allergic to whey. Women are actually a higher proportion of women are allergic to whey as well. And so what happens is you have these digestive issues, and you just chalk it up to whatever food you were eating that day. But it's the actual
Mm.
whey protein. So you're gonna find immediately if you're switching to vegan protein that your digestive system is a lot smoother and a lot easier. If
Oh,
you're
that's really interesting.
Yeah. And if you're going with a vegan protein, you want to make sure it's got different sources of protein so that you're getting a full spectrum of your amino acid profile. But
Right.
that is actually more bioavailable. So your body's able to utilize that more in terms of building your muscles. So you're going to find better muscle building, better muscle construction, but quicker results in terms of building muscle. And you're going to find that your digestive system's a lot easier.
Oh, that's really interesting. Um, and kind of, oh, I lost track of what I was gonna say.
Mhm.
And um, in terms of other protein sources, other than tofu, like, do you eat a lot of lentils? What do you, what do you kind of like do in that sense?
What do I lean on in terms of protein?
Yeah, other than tofu. I
Yeah.
mean, tofu. A lot of people. The thing is that a lot of people, that I know are like, well, tofu. I don't know. I don't know about tofu.
And why?
You know.
And they don't know about tofu because of why? Because of what?
Well, they like to say, and I disagree with this, of course, but they like to say that, um, one, some people just don't like it because they don't like the texture or the taste. Some people also like to try to, talk about the hormone thing, which I disagree with, which I understand is not true. But if someone is avoiding tofu,
Yeah.
what would you recommend?
Then I recommend beans because beans have like peas are sources of protein. Black bean, pinto beans, excellent source of protein. Brown rice, green leafy vegetables, broccoli, your spinach. So again, you're getting the carbohydrates which your body needs. Even as bodybuilders, a lot of us have this idea that carbohydrates are a bad thing or a negative thing. Your body
Right.
is fueled by carbohydrates. If you don't have enough, your brain start to shut down. So you these things, but if you're getting them from good sources, raw, natural sources, you're going to find that you're not going to gain the weight that you would otherwise gain if you're getting from different sources. So I found that I was able to stay lean and tight while building muscle a lot easier on a vegan diet than I was on a non-vegan diet.
Mm, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then as
All
you
right.
talked about with the tofu,
Yeah.
that's one of the big things I stress is there is no hormone issue. People get confused with
Yeah.
the word phytoestrogen because that's what tofu contains, phytoestrogen. The word
Hmm.
phyto means plant, and so plant estrogens have no effect in the human body, as has been shown in different studies. Like they've studied this thing for like 50, 60 years now, even longer, and it's no effect on the human body that they've ever been able to document in a study.
Right, right. Yeah. No, I know, and I agree with that completely. Um, so Farmhouse Garden Animal Home's mission is to provide a safe home for the animals in their care. They want to show others that farm animals deserve love and compassion. Each of their animals is a unique individual, and by learning and interacting with them, Farmhouse hopes to teach others to love them as well. Farmhouse Garden Animal Home subsides entirely on donations. They are a non-profit with 30 cows, 2 horses, 1 duck, and others. You can please consider donating to them. You can donate to them or visit them in their beautiful location in Uxbridge, which is in Ontario, Canada. I know you can't do that, Chaka, but for anyone listening in Canada or Ontario, it's really a nice drive and a great place to go. And you can find them on the web, on Facebook, Instagram, or by visiting farmhousegardenanimalhome.com. Thanks, Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, for sponsoring today's podcast. I'd like to get on today's question, Shaka, which is, what is your view of hunting?
What is my view of hunting? It's such an interesting question. 'Cause I think there's so many different types of hunting. Uh,
Hmm.
I think if you're hunting for sport, I'm not. at all in favor of that. Uh,
Right.
Now, if you're hunting for the actual use of the animal, and for me, it's more than just the actual use of the animal. It needs to be part of your culture, the way you were raised, the like that is what the option is largely
Right.
for you in your area. So if there's parts of some
Mm-hmm.
rural Africa, in different areas like that, where that is how you subsist, I'm all for it. I think there is a balance to the food chain in terms of living and subsisting off the land. So in that sense, I'm fine with it. But if you're doing it for sport or doing it because it's sort of an alternative lifestyle, then I'm not a fan of it.
So what would you say then? I mean, to someone whose argument is, well, you're kind of killing an animal needlessly. What would your response be to that? Because I see your point, right? I mean, in Canada there are a lot of indigenous people,
Hmm.
and you know, they hunt whales, they hunt different kinds of animals, caribou, so forth,
Yeah,
for what they eat. And I know, for example, in the northern parts of Canada, it's really hard to get food out there.
yeah,
And so there are so parts of their culture is to hunt, and that provides them with a lot more food.
yeah.
But I mean, it's 2018. Um, even I mean, even if it's part of their culture, it may not be necessary. So, what is your view? What do you say to that?
I think it's tough because when you're talking about culture, you're talking about hundreds, maybe even thousands of years of culture for different people, and so and I have to think that the majority of those people that are in that minority of the population globally. So if they're, I think you can introduce it to their culture that might make them think differently 50, 60, 70 years down the line. But you can't change someone's culture overnight. You can't change a need to use animals overnight if that is the only way you can eat to survive. So if that's what we're talking about, I think it's good to be an advocate and to maybe expose them to different ways and methods. But of course, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to change a culture overnight. So you have to find some sort of, I guess, balance in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm just gonna keep playing the kind of the advocate here on like the high level. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, of course.
it does in my head. Um, what? Well, wouldn't you say that uh, eating animals has been part of everyone's culture?
Yeah, but I think there's some cultures that have been isolated. So you have cultures that have been completely isolated that have,
Mm-hmm.
like living in LA, even if just from living in LA to Toronto or some other area where they don't have access to vegan food, that already makes it difficult. I can't imagine if you're on, a place where you haven't been exposed to anything. There's not a Starbucks, within 50 miles of you. So in that sense, I think you have to have balance. You have to have grace for a culture and for people and the way they've lived the last 100 years, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
have, I guess, it's sort of a respect in terms of. I think there's a better way or a way that we can do this where it's more sustainable for the environment, but
Right.
we also have to do it in a way that that culture can accept it or move closer to it.
Right. And I mean, I don't necessarily disagree like as from a personal standpoint, because I
Yeah.
understand that you can't change people overnight, and
Yeah.
that sometimes, it's better to allow people to survive their way. But from that high level view again, wouldn't it be still considered speciesism? I mean, we're still saying, our culture then is um is above an animal's culture or above an animal's life.
Not in the way that I believe that I'm talking about it. Like again, like I think if you are in a culture that's been closed off from, I guess, the large amount of society, in terms of the way we've kind of progressed, and you are subsisting off the land as you have for hundreds of years, uh, and other animals eat other animals in that ecosystem. You're just an animal eating another animal in that ecosystem. So, and a lot of these cultures do that are, and I can't speak to what's going on over in Canada, but a lot of these cultures that I know of or have been exposed to, they also have respect for the land and they're blessing the land, they're blessing the
Mm-hmm.
animals, and they're not overusing the animals and they're not hunting beyond their needs.
Right.
So, in that sense, I think that we as humans are part of the ecosystem. So if that is the
Okay.
way that it came about and that's the way it's being done, then it's not speciesism when a frog eats a fly.
Right, but um, I mean, speciesism is kind of the view that we as humans, we have a moral obligation, a moral understanding that we shouldn't necessarily be killing animals and putting ourselves above them because we're not the top of the food chain. I mean, we've become the top of the food chain because of our technology, but it doesn't make us a natural top of the food chain predator.
I'm talking
So,
about cultures that are like still living in that culture. They have no technology. They're still hunting using
oh, I see. Okay.
that's those
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay, okay.
those kind of culture. Not us as people, but
So like very isolated cultures,
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like
because
you have these cultures in Africa that have just done things the same way for hundreds of years, have had very limited contacts. A lot of cultures in South America the same way have had very limited contact. I think there's still some cultures in South America that we've observed and we actually have no contact. Like they've never had contact with
right, right.
outsiders. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. With I mean, I completely agree with that. That's fair because that's like those are people who live without technology. Those are people who live without
They're part of the
like
ecosystem.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Let me brief you a little bit about kind of the view that I'm coming from, which is the more like Canadian Indigenous, and I think American Indigenous is similar to this, where it's you have Indigenous people living up north in isolated areas,
Mhm.
but there are grocery stores, there are airplanes that come there, there are
Oh, I see.
yeah, yeah, there are schools, there are computers, they have basically, I mean, they have essentially same levels of technology as we have, give or take,
Yeah.
something like I think their internet speed is very, very not like it's very bad, as an example.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, for me, I'm struggling because I'm not sure what I think is right and wrong
Well, I don't think there is any
because
right or wrong in that situation. I think it's a matter of exposure. There's no right or wrong. I think there's no wrong in doing what you've known to do your entire life. There's no wrong in doing what you haven't learned and not doing what you haven't learned. So I think it's just more about education and exposure. And I
mm,
guess kind of like and being able to do that in a way where you're having grace for those people in that culture and finding a way to educate and expose them in a way that's in line with their culture as well.
okay, interesting. Well, just because I mean, there are people who would say, like trying to convince indigenous people that veganism is the right path is a mock to their culture, right? Because because a big part of their culture is hunting,
Hmm.
so it's kind of it's and they're not isolated. They've changed a lot of their culture already to um, adhere to like technology norms for example.
Yeah.
But at the same time, indigenous people, I mean, in Canada we have a huge problem with indigenous people because they've lost a lot of their culture,
Hmm.
and we're not trying not to make sure it's not gone. So, and I don't know, my answer to what's your view of hunting is also very complicated. I don't know what to say because I agree with sport. I think sport that is not like you cannot do that. That is not
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
fair at all. Sorry, I didn't mean to say I agree with sport. I meant to say I agree with your view of
Uh,
sport hunting, which is not at all.
yeah.
Um, but and I also agree with your view of saying like cultures that are very, very isolated, that don't have technology, that don't have regular communication with the rest of the world. Like there's no, I'm not gonna go forth and try to change those people, or try to encourage them to go vegan. But then I think about people in my country in Canada, and I think about wanting everybody to go vegan to reduce as much harm as possible, and it's such a hard kind of line to be on, to say, well, I disagree with hunting, but there are
Well,
some people in Canada, the indigenous people, who I think maybe can hunt sometimes. I don't
Well,
know.
well, I think it's like you have to meet people where they're at. So it's like,
Mm,
I disagree. It's like saying, I disagree with hunting for sport, but if you're a hunter, I have to meet you where you're at. Even if you're someone who hunts for sport, I can't come in and just tell you stop, it's wrong, because you're probably not going to respond to that, right? So I
Hmm.
have to find whatever it is that triggers you, whatever it is that has made you decide this is something you want to do, that makes you feel culturally tied to it, whatever it is, and I have to come at you from that angle. So
Right.
I think it's a respect issue on both sides, because I think a lot of people that are trying to convince people to go vegan don't respect that what those people are doing is right for them, and it's right
Right.
for them in that moment because that's all they know. So once I respect you and I say, okay, what you're doing, I respect that you do it because that's who you are and what's happening. I'm going to show you how I think you can do it differently. And I think you can have the same level of enjoyment or the same thing that you're tied to, but also have this added benefit of helping animals on the planet. And so I think it's
Hmm.
just meeting people where they're at. So you have to have grace and you have to say, you're fine, you're good, there's no right, there's no wrong, but let me invite you to look at this other option.
Oh, okay. I see. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
that's how you. I think that's how you change people. I think that's how you change culture. That's how you change the world.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean that's part of what I'm trying to do with this podcast is kind of just encourage people to learn slowly about veganism.
yeah,
But okay, so your answer to the question is essentially yes and no, and uh,
yeah. I mean, I pretty much
culture
say I
is
disagree.
kind
I
of
disagree with hunting in general.
right.
What's going on in Canada is a little bit unique, so I haven't been exposed to that situation.
Yeah, that's
It's
fair.
nothing I'd ever considered in that way. My only thing with hunting has been basically people that do it for sport, and then these cultures that are just completely isolated. So the general answer is no, because you're not going to even really come in contact with other cultures for the most part.
Hmm. Now there is also a huge subculture of hunting in the states that is for sport, but it's also to get rid of like invasive species, as an example.
Yeah,
Or to get rid of. I mean, I know in Louisiana and in New Orleans, I believe, or not New Orleans, Louisiana, New Orleans, same thing. Louisiana and Florida,
yeah.
um, they like. I think they have like hunting for alligators or for crocodiles once in a while to make sure that they don't overrun the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and that one's tricky because
Yeah,
that's an actual problem where you're going to lose the ecosystem if you don't do something about it.
but
Um,
you also don't want to kill animals because it's kind of cruel to
yeah,
kill animals.
and so I don't know what the solution there is, and
Hmm.
I think there is a solution. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I
And
also I'm not sure either what a solution could be. I mean, I would say that I think that there needs to be research done, and I'm pretty sure that the hunting is probably unnecessary.
in those situations, like at least when I've heard them, the hunting's very necessary in terms of whether it's the land getting overrun or another species getting killed off by another species that proliferates, and so that species can't help whatever's happening with the land.
But
So I,
wouldn't that be? I mean, wouldn't that be more? I don't know how to like say this, but like, wouldn't it be more ethical to let a species that doesn't understand what it's doing do something terrible versus
a species
us to do it?
then a species that understands and then do something that helps. I don't know. I think it's the latter. I think it's better to
Okay.
have us correct a situation that would get worse than let it happen just because we know better but don't want to influence the. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
do. No, I do what you mean. I don't.
okay, I'm trying to say, if you have a
It's
situation where you have all these crops, let's say you're making all these crops for the entire village, and you got 1,000 people that rely on these plants, and then all of a sudden you have and you always have maybe 10 or 12 local rabbits or whatever it is, but now there's 50 or 60 local rabbits, and you know that these rabbits are going to finish off the crops, and if you don't do anything about it now, then the entire village of 1,000 people won't eat and maybe starve or die.
hmm.
So I, I have to be in that situation. I have to be okay with. I mean, I like you to take the rabbits and move them elsewhere, but if you have no other options, I have to be okay with you killing the rabbits.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think
I
it
don't.
does in some
Yep.
situations come down to that sort of, it's either this or that. But I also think in some situations you have other options. I think there's needs to be better coordination between maybe areas that are lacking in certain resources and areas that have an abundance. Maybe we could make some moves and move people and or move animals in that way. but I think it has
Mm-hmm.
to do with funding and coordination. So I think we can reduce the amount that those situations happen, but I don't know if we can altogether get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say because I just don't know what
'Cause,
my view is. I mean, it's just
yeah, because
I think. Yep.
what would you do if you had a population of an animal that was almost going extinct, and there was a predator who was nowhere near extinction, and they were just, proliferating everywhere in that particular area. So you wanted to kill off some of the predator to preserve this one animal so that it didn't go extinct. That's another
But
one of
then
those sort
but
of.
then the question for me becomes more of, is it am I allowing more of a natural discourse, or am I trying to influence? Because the reality of the situation is that we as humans have displaced and destroyed the environment so much already that it is a natural discourse to allow, other animals to, yeah, like, I mean, it sucks, like
But
I
shouldn't
don't
we?
want any
Yeah,
species to go extinct,
yeah.
but I just don't. But I don't know if it's more of a natural phenomenon. Like, I'm actually reading a book about extinction right now, and the way that it sounds like it is, I mean, it sounds like extinction is a natural phenomenon and a natural thing that just happens without human interference. So wouldn't it make more sense in a way to allow it to happen?
I think I think
Like,
yeah.
do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's
I
very
think we
hard.
as I guess as humans we've I guess value diversity, and so we always want to maintain a diversity of species of animals, because I think we've seen that diversity is good in terms of the animal kingdom, because
Yeah.
each animal offers different things, and you might lose something if you lose an animal. So there's that. But then there's this idea that we are divorced from the animal kingdom, and I don't think we as humans are divorced from it. Like, we are part of this species, we are part of this ecosystem. Maybe because we've had a greater impact on it than most, because we're sentient beings. I don't think that removes us from this process. So
Mm-hmm.
when we say, should we let that animal extinct, the animal that the predator might be in abundance because of our presence here over the last hundreds of years. So,
Mm-hmm.
when we look at things today, we can't say it's an isolation that, we're not part of the species. Everything that is today is because we have been here. So, if a species is going to go extinct, I think it is honest to save it, because I think we are probably part of the reason it might be headed towards extinction, even if we can't
Yep.
tie it
And that's
directly to what
fair.
we've done.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And that's fair. I mean, that's fair. I don't even know. I don't even know where I stand on this. And I think I think most people, most vegans, when you ask them a question like this, they'll be like, what? Because it is a hard question. It is a
yeah.
hard viewpoint. There's so many factors to take into it, um, and so much going forward.
Yeah, I just think fundamentally that I think fundamentally humans are part of the ecosystem. So I never like to divorce us from the balance of, predator prey and, animals. Like, we're part of that kingdom. It's just
Mm-hmm.
we know more, so it's better to assess, with our actions, at what level do we say this now is not being informed by our place in the animal world, it's being informed by something else.
Right. That's fair. Shaka, did you know that garlic is highly nutritious and yet low in calories?
I,
28 grams of garlic contains 23% of your daily manganese, 17% of your daily vitamin B6, 15% of your daily vitamin C, 6% of your selenium, and zero point 0.6 grams of daily fiber. On top of this, there have been some studies that found that garlic could even combat the common cold, which is pretty cool. Thanks, garlic, for sponsoring today's podcast.
that's awesome, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do a clove of garlic every day.
Oh, that's amazing. Have
Yeah.
you gotten sick recently?
No, I never get sick, ever.
Oh, so there you go.
Yeah,
Really? You
yeah.
never get sick?
No, I mean,
I'm.
I will get a sore throat, and that's how I know my body is like getting sick. But other than that sore throat, no other symptoms. So like, I
Mm,
know that sore throat is me catching a cold and fighting it off.
I'm actually trying to battle like I'm cold right now. I just like it just started popping up yesterday, and I'm like, oh my god, please, I can't
Tell,
get sick right now.
I'm telling you, get a bulb of garlic, cut off a couple pieces of cloves, take one, like swallow it like a pill every couple hours. You'll be good to go.
All right, I'll try it later. I'll let you know the results. Um. Okay, Shaka, I want to know, what do you aspire to do with your veganism?
I lost you.
Oh, what do you aspire to do with your veganism?
What do I aspire to do with my veganism? You know,
Yeah,
I think just talking to people. I don't really have an aspiration with it. I think one day the world will be vegan, and we'll kind of look back to this particular part of history and
hopefully.
say we were a little bit primitive now, because I think at one point we had to eat meat in terms of population growth and figuring stuff out. I think it was necessary at one point, but I think we are in a stage of our life where it looks so primitive. It feels primitive, at least to me, because it's just not necessary, and it's not healthy for our bodies or the environment or the other animals. And so I
Hmm.
think we're gonna get to a point where the whole world is vegan, and I guess my only aspiration is to be part of that voice, you know. And I
Right.
think I really my biggest aspiration is to let people know that don't hear about this on the daily basis, who aren't in Los Angeles, who are struggling and maybe to make ends meet, to know that it's an option, it's available, that investing in the hard work in terms of mentally going vegan will actually pay off for your body, your life, your family, your future. So I think that's what I want to do, because I think it's still a very esoteric subject. You know, we talk about veganism, it's celebrities, it's wealthy people, it's people that have this access, and I
Hmm.
think I really want people to know that it's not just that.
Hmm. Awesome. Um, Now I know we talked a little bit about your tips and and suggestions in terms of working out and keeping fit.
Yeah.
Do you have any struggles being vegan and being fit and being vegan and working out a lot? Like, is there anything that you struggle with? Because I mean,
I mean, not
I think yep.
not too many struggles. I'd say the biggest struggle is um, is the ease of access. Like, for instance, when I got ready for a show, you know, I was leaning heavily on protein, low on carbohydrates for a show, and you know, I could walk in anywhere and just grab a bag of chicken or a thing of tuna, or yeah, and even in LA, I could just go anywhere. Going vegan, you have to plan a little bit more to make
Mm-hmm.
your proteins the right level that you want it, your macronutrients are where they should be, your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats. So it requires a little bit more planning, but not much. But you know, if you're used to a
Mm-hmm.
certain way of doing things, it can seem like a heavy task. But once I invested in the planning of it, what would I eat for my competition week? Where would I get my protein? Where would I get my carbohydrates and my fats from? Once I did
Mm-hmm.
that, there was no difficulty.
Okay, so it really just came down to basically planning,
Yeah. And
and
that's
now
why
you're
I took it in
good.
stages, because the planning is
Right.
important. I'm going to tell people out there, you can be vegan when you're sober and then not vegan when you're drunk. And so even the 2 years that I had, I built up that willpower to when I had a couple of drinks, I wouldn't just reach for the first thing that was there, you know?
Right. Yeah. I've actually never broken that. I'm really happy for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, I've only been vegan about a year and a half, and I have not, when I'm drunk, I have not screwed up. So been very proud of myself for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I couldn't go cold turkey, because I knew that if I was drunk, I would do this, or you know, or if I was having a bad day, I might just reach for whatever, and then all of a sudden in my mind, I would just undo it all, you know. So I did it in stages, just to take it easy and be able to prepare myself for those
Hmm.
challenges.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to a couple people like that. I met this one girl who said that she had there was no pizza that she could eat at a party. It was just like cheese, and she ended up going back to being vegetarian. And
Yeah,
I was like, well, I guess I mean it does happen, but I've never had that, so I can't like directly relate to it
yeah. I
because
mean,
I always just prepare. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bring a pizza or I'm gonna buy food, and I know exactly what I'm getting, and I look it up and I make sure that I'm there.
see, for someone like her, I think she would have benefited from doing it in stages, because like that experience that she had, I had similar experiences, but that would be like my first year when I gave up red meat. So I wasn't vegan yet, but I gave up
Mm,
red meat, but I knew that I could have X, Y, and Z. So,
right,
but I would think to myself, well, next year when I go pescatarian, what would I do? You know, or
right.
that third year when I go vegan, what would I do? So it gave me 2 years to like play with these ideas and think about them so that I was ready. Yeah, and LA, there's so many different events and different things. You go to this party and then you know you find out Wolfgang Puck is making the filet mignon, you know, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't miss out on that. So I even had to get myself out of that mindset. So that took time to be
Hmm.
able
Hmm.
to face those challenges.
I think a lot of people also face similar challenges when they talk about like traveling.
Yeah,
And they're like, well, I don't want to miss out on X, Y, and Z when I'm traveling.
yeah.
which my response has always been, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, is, I missed out on some things while I was traveling, because I came back from Hong Kong a couple months ago,
Yeah.
and I was there for a while. I was there for 4 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I did a decent amount of traveling while I was there. I missed out on some things while I was there, but what veganism enabled me to do was really see the city.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've heard of the app Happy Cow.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to like cities like Singapore or Taipei or or Seoul, and I would look in Happy Cow and say, okay, what's open right now? What's around? And I would find restaurants that I thought were cool, but they were maybe across the city. And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything for the next hour and a half. I'll do it. I'll just go out and I'll try to find that restaurant. And I ended up going to so many different parts of these cities that I never would have gone to otherwise. Like I would have stayed in the heart of Seoul or in the heart of Taipei rather than getting all the way across like the river or getting all the way across the city to eat something. And it was amazing. Like it was so much fun and so cool and so different. And I actually thought it was better than being able to eat the things that all the other tourists ate.
Yeah.
Because I got to experience like a whole different view of all of these amazing cities.
Yeah.
So
I think we also overestimate, like we eat a lot of vegan food around the world. You know what I mean? I think we overestimate how much meat and how much cheese that people eat in terms of what's available. I think people just think if I go vegan, there's nothing available for me. But there's vegan things around the world that are widely available. So it's there, it's open, and you're gonna still get a flavor of that country and that culture, even eating their vegan food.
I mean, I'm not sure if you heard about this lady, but her name is the Supreme Master, and like if you haven't, you should definitely Google her later. She is like this. I call her the vegan god of East Asia. Because she owns this, I wouldn't call it a cult, but it's like kind of a cult, and it's like it's a large part of it's veganism, a large part of it's being nice to other people, stuff like that. But she helps to sponsor restaurants all around East Asia. So I would walk into these restaurants, and there was just like her TV channel playing on the TV screen, and every one of them, and there are different restaurants. Some of them were the same. It's amazing. It is so different than here.
Wow. Totally cool.
Yeah, look her up. You'll find her. Her name is like Ching Hai or something.
Supreme Master.
Yeah. It's a very interesting, totally different world that I did not understand or learn about until about like 3 months into my exchange while I was there. And I was like, I went to a restaurant and I'm like, I see her TV, and then I went to a different restaurant, I see her TV again. Another restaurant, I'm like, okay, who is this lady?
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's vegans around the world, and they're making impacts in their different countries and their different areas. And there's vegan food and I think there's food that's vegan in different cultural places that it's not labeled vegan because they don't have that terminology. But it's there
that's also
because
fair.
we eat tons of vegan food as people, but we just have this idea that once you call it vegan, it's something different, and I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the China study, which I'm sure you've heard about, I mean, it looked at cities in China that just didn't eat meat as often.
Yeah.
And veganism is a huge part of rising economies and a huge part of developing countries. We're just really used to it here. We're used to it in North America, but in large parts of the world.
And even those who aren't used to it, it's like every restaurant has a salad. There's people that are like, oh, what could I eat? Every restaurant has a salad. So
that's true. Yeah. Did you know that brown lentils contain high levels of soluble fiber, which can help reduce blood cholesterol? Mm-hmm. And on top of that, lentils can also help to improve digestion as well. Lentils also have oh man, today is not a good day for sponsor calls. Lentils also have high levels of folate, thiamine, vitamin B6, iron, phosphorus, and zinc. Thank you, brown lentils, for sponsoring today's episode. Before we go to the kind of the last little bit of the podcast, is there anything that you'd like to say, Shaka?
Just thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation. I'm learning about some different issues I hadn't thought about, but I'll have to go research and think about some more. So yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
really happy to be exposed. It's great because I haven't talked to too many people outside of this country about veganism. So I really appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping to keep expanding worldwide. I've only done North America so far. Or no,
Yeah.
I have actually no, that's not true. I lied. I have had one person on from Ireland.
Oh, cool.
Um, so next is keep growing and learning about all the different kinds of things all over the world.
Yeah, and the types of veganism, 'cause I think it's going to look different for every culture, every country, and every person, really. But yeah, you're going to have those significant differences. So it'll be interesting to see more about how other cultures view it and how they are tackling veganism.
I mean, a year ago, I didn't even know that eggplant was called aubergine in the UK and in Ireland.
And
And I learned about that and I was like, "What?"
and I've heard of it. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either until you just mentioned it. I've heard of aubergine, did not know it was eggplant.
Yeah, it's eggplant. Yeah. And they have a different word for zucchini, I think, too. But I don't know. I forget what it is.
So yeah, you might see that on the menu and be like, oh, I can't get that. I don't know what it is, but now you know.
Yeah, you know. All right. I'd like to thank today's sponsors, Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, Garlic, Brown Lentils, and Shaka, and you, the listeners, for being here with us today. You can find Shaka on Instagram at Shaka Strong. That's SHAKASTRONG. Shaka also is on a podcast called Fit Club. You can find that on iTunes or on the YouTube channel Black Hollywood Live. And if you have a suggestion, you have a question, you want to be a sponsor, or you want to be on an episode, you can send us an email at veganambitionpodcast@gmail.com or visit my website, theveganambition.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. And thank you, Shaka, for being here today. It was awesome. I learned a lot.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good one.